as the CEO of your company, right? Your brand is your way for you to start marketing yourself, really. And that shift, like you talked about in the mindset to change from, independent contractor to now a business owner is really what we're talking about in order for you to create this brand and this vision of what you have for your company.
Hi, friends. Welcome to Getting Your Real Estate Life Together. I'm Tracy Hicks with All Things Real Estate, and today I have Jennifer Tucker with EXP Realty. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hey, Tracy, thank you so much.
Yes. Okay. So you had a big change this year. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself because what I had on your one sheet for the podcast has changed, just like realtors do. So I'm going to let you tell us what you do and where you're at.
Sure. Jennifer Tucker. I'm here based out of New York and specifically on Long Island. I'm an associate broker at EXP Realty for the last 4 months. I've been in the business for 10 years and was kind of grew up in an entrepreneurial family and got my roots with my father's business at the time. And my mom was in real estate, and it was just a natural transition for me to move into real estate. See, at my previous brokerage, I was the top producing agent, and I've also been nationally recognized within that previous brokerage for my sales performance and volume.
Nice, nice. And also, so you just, like you said, you've been there 3 or 4 months. So you just made a change. We talked about it a little before because we always like to chat and make sure that we're talking about the things that you want to talk about. But I think that you did what a lot of people are during, this time, COVID and what's happening, obviously. But going virtual is something that a lot of people are either doing or considering. And I'm always interested. I mean, it's generally kind of the same reason, it's money and not going into the office kind of thing. But, EXP is kind of taking things by storm. So I would love to really just kind of hear what, why you decided to do that and what changes it's done for your business. Because I think a lot of people are also afraid to make a change, even though they want to, because they're afraid of their business changing. How was that for you?
It was definitely a thought out process. It probably took me 6 to 9 months to really make the decision
Oh, wow.
that if this was really going to be best for me and my business. What ultimately, well, I guess the timing was right for me. I had asked my brokerage as well as my regional director, like, I'm the top producing agent, within this, brokerage in the metro New York region. Okay, what are we going to do to get me to the next level? And I had already written a book and had several more that I have written with a ghostwriter. And I'm like, okay, I've done my part. How are you going to help me? And no one had an answer. So I was very perplexed by it, to be honest with you. Like, how are we not? Aren't we trying to grow the brokerage here? So you should
Right.
be, investing in your top producing agent at the time. And it didn't happen. And I, for the 3 months after that, I just kept revisiting it with the broker. Okay, what are we going to do to grow my business? What are we going to do to grow my business? And there was just no connection. I didn't like the way things were being run in my office, and the lag time on some of the transactions was ultimately hurting me as well. So I was approached by someone in California, who really marketed me. I entered into their webinar, and it was, it seemed like a good fit, and I was willing to take the leap. And it was ultimately a one-day decision that kind of happened for me. So what ultimately I reflected on in the month after I left was all the top producing agents in the previous years had already left. And probably my rationale in leaving was exactly the same as theirs. What are you going to do to grow my business? And there was no answers given.
Right, right. You make such a good point with hopefully there's some brokerage owners or people that are considering starting a brokerage that are listening. And I think that's something that, because I'm a brokerage owner as well, I think that's something that we forget or don't think about often enough is checking in with your agents asking them, are they getting what what they need? And then also ultimately in the very beginning, setting that standard for what we will do for our agents and what they're paying for, and kind of making sure that that balance is there. And I think with this new era of virtual and EXP kind of, taking the world by storm right now. And I think that it hopefully will cause people to pause and think about that, how are the agents feeling? Because a lot of what you're saying, you said you went to the brokerage and talked to them and we're getting there. Maybe that's not what they were equipped for, but you should have also probably, and I guess over time things change, of course, but
Right.
those are things that should really be, I hear that quite often, actually,
Yeah.
everything that you just said.
I would just add that as a broker, we tend to focus on those newer agents, right? What can we do to grow them? And as the
Right.
associate broker and a training manager within that office, I was focused on those newer agents. And that's really what my book is geared for, new agents or agents who have been in the business 1 to 2 years and really seeing a stagnation in any growth or just, hitting a platform,
Right.
flat line.
Yeah.
But as a broker, I think focusing on those top tier agents is really what I would say that is what we need to focus on as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really easy to forget about them because they're
Yes.
doing well.
And
They're
their
doing
business
good.
is surviving on their own, right? There's
Yeah.
not a lot of attention to detail. You don't have to hold their hand through everything or coach them through everything. It's
Yeah.
a matter of them doing the business. And then I think as a broker, we have to say, okay, if they're doing X, how do I get them to Z, right? How do I get them to the next level?
Yeah. Yeah. Or even just asking them, what is it that what are your goals for the year and what can we do to help you get there? And, maybe they can and maybe they can't, but the conversation doesn't take place enough, I think is what happens. And you
Sure.
just, it's just not top of mind. And just like you said, with top producers, they're good. Like, okay, they're doing their thing and they don't need us. And so that's definitely something to consider and doesn't get talked about enough. So thank you
For
for
sure.
bringing that up. A lot of times people won't even say it, they're like, I'm not getting what I need. And maybe it's as simple as that, but us as agents as well, we like to overthink things and
And top agents never want more money. I have to be honest. I mean, I really think that for me, it wasn't. It wasn't a matter of, my commission splits being higher
yeah,
or anything like that. It was like, I need to grow, but I
support.
need help. Give me help. Whether
Yes.
that's,
Whatever that looks like.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, you talked also about training and helping other agents. And I think innately a lot of realtors that have been in the business a long time like to do that, like to help other agents because well, A, we've all been there as a new agent. And B, I think that it betters our realtor community when new agents have help and can learn the business, because if they're doing well, then ultimately we're all going to do well because we're going to be on the other side of that transaction. And
Right.
so I love that, that was also your reasoning for writing a book and for training. When you were kind of training new agents, and new being like what, 1 to 2 years, right?
1 to 2 years, basically, or those maybe who have had a couple of transactions under their belt, but still weren't able to, rise above one transaction per month. They were just kind of, lingering in that under 10 range per
Yeah.
year.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the trainings first, and that'll kind of probably take us into the book and what you've been writing about. But in your training, what are when's the last time you did a training? Has it been a while?
I've done about 2 years now. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, then we won't dive
but
too much in, but
But I'm an see, my background is in education.
education.
So
Yes.
it came natural for me to create this whole curriculum,
Yes.
reverse engineer it, just like one of the steps that I teach in the training was reverse engineering your numbers, right? What's your bottom line? What is your gross commission that you want to make annually? And then, okay, what are we going to do on a quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily, hourly basis in order for you to hit those numbers?
I love that. Another thing we just don't think about, is doing that. And you think commission check and how much you're like, okay, the sales price times my percentage, and that's my money.
But you're ultimately, if you're doing that, you're still just a paycheck employee because
Yep.
you're living paycheck to paycheck. You're not thinking like a business owner or an investor at
Yes.
that point. And that's one of the second steps that I teach is you need to change your mindset and incorporate yourself, right? Create an LLC or an S corp or, C corp, whatever is best for you, so that you can just have a small shift and you pay yourself as an employee as opposed to, you living in that paycheck mode.
Yes. Yeah. And also, I say it all the time, and I say that all the time, but I say that you are all mini corporations. You're all
Yes.
you're your own business, no matter
Hmm.
what, whether you hang your license with a brokerage or you have your own or whatever, you're still all little mini businesses. And I think the more often that they think about that, think of it in that way, and creating that LLC, even if they're not doing it for, maybe the paycheck, structure, but when you create your LLC, it changes your mindset. You're like, "Oh, I am a business, and oh yeah, I do have to pay for, the internet, which you're going to have at home anyway, but hey, you can write it off." Just changing your way of making decisions as well, I think that's something I'm doing right now. I've been in the business, I don't know, 18 years. I've been running all things real estate for 8 years. And this year, for whatever reason, I had a mind shift. And that doesn't always happen naturally. Sometimes you have to force yourself into that. So coming up with habits and ways of doing that is really important. But going back to basics sometimes, again, we're overthinkers as realtors, and we want to make sure that everybody else is taken care of except for ourselves. And that means business too. So that
Hmm.
reverse engineering that you're talking about is such a great way of thinking about it. What's the next thing after that? Reverse engineering. And then what?
And then what, right?
Now I sell
Well,
30
as
houses a year.
well, you as the CEO of your company, right? Your brand is your way for you to start marketing yourself, really. And that shift, like you talked about in the mindset to change from, independent contractor to now a business owner is really what we're talking about in order for you to create this brand and this vision of what you have for your company.
Yeah. And I
Oh,
also
so
think,
what's my,
sorry.
one of the, I guess I would say that one of the next tools in my branding as the CEO is, what are you going to do your marketing? Because really that's what one of our jobs is, right? We're both marketers and lead generation specialists as realtors.
Yep.
So as marketing, everything works. People always ask me what works, what should I use, what should I use? Everything works. You just have to be persistent and consistent with your strategies in the marketing that you're doing. So I'm still this paper postcard, kind of agent, but
Yeah.
I've learned that more of my clients as well are also on social media, and they're primarily Facebook. So I choose not to really dabble in, some of the other marketing, TikTok and things like that, right?
Yeah.
Because that's
Yeah.
where my clients are. So Instagram and Facebook is where they are. So that's where I choose to marketing. But it's not that the paper, because we're moving into this new world, doesn't actually work. It does. It definitely, but again, it's the timing. How persistent are you going to be, right? Because people don't remember you until the ninth time that they see you.
Yep.
That's statistics, right? And that's just data and science. So I choose to just do it that way. I mean, if you just want to, be on social media, then just be persistent and consistent about it. My new phase, obviously, as I'm developing and growing more with EXP, is to really get into video. So I'm really exploring YouTube and creating my own YouTube channel at this time so that it's really out there for people to see. And then I have a way to kind of obviously co-brand myself and other social media platforms too.
Yeah, yeah. And you also mentioned that I love what you said about that's not where my people are. And I
Mm.
think all too often realtors are like, oh, I have to be everywhere all the time, and you said it perfectly. Your people are on Facebook, and
Hmm.
using those YouTube videos, you can also share that to Facebook, and it
Right.
brings them right back to your YouTube channel. So, a client avatar, that is something that I definitely wanted to talk to you about because I don't think agents do it enough. And you can't be the realtor for everybody. There's just, it's not
No, definitely
necessary.
not.
You only need whatever your goal is for that year. I mean, if you
Right.
think about it and narrow it down to how many transactions you really want to do per year, it's not going to be over 50 or 100, and I think so often this big world of social media and maybe even just a farming area, if there's 3 or 400 people in a neighborhood that you want to farm, that still is a lot. So you got to narrow it down to who your people are, and having a client avatar is really important. How did you decide who your people were? Besides the obvious, like you kind of know
Yeah,
what
in
your
the first
genre
5
is.
years, yeah, I would say in the first 5 years, that really was the struggle, right? Like, who is my client? What do they look like?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I discovered personality profiling
Ah,
that I discovered who my ideal client is and what that avatar is, right?
yeah.
It was really a self exploration for me and discovering who I was in this personality. And and I learned the DISC personality profile. So I'm a high D, which is a dominant person, and C, cautious personality. So I realized that obviously I'm going to attract people because we all know people want to do business that are more like themselves, right? So I learned to attract those kind of people, and they were investors. Everyone who was making decisions really were investor types, those who were fix and flipping or fix and holding builders. Those are the people that I really attracted. So I chose to go after maybe distressed properties. And I would bring a partner or a more inexperienced agent with me because they were able to handhold, because I'm not really good at that, handhold the seller and really guide them through the process of distressed properties, whether that was a trust in estate or maybe someone going through a short sale or possibly a foreclosure, where I would be able to obviously gain on that end, but yet pitch that property to my clients who I was working with all the time. So my pool of investors of about 10, I had one property to kind of filter out to 10 people.
Wow. See, and look how much you narrowed that down. 10 people. Like,
Yeah.
that's
And
amazing.
that's all my referral business really is coming from these days. So yeah.
Wow. And you intentionally built that for yourself because you took the time.
It was a way of seeing, what numbers did I have to reach, reverse engineering it, and how can I simplify it, right? Because I didn't want to be, one, spending all this marketing money, okay, and two, I knew that the referral business would just keep turning over and over and over. So they seemed endless to me. So that's really the way to go. And the fact that I love a quick transaction, like, again, I'm being very transparent as a high D and C person, my feelings and emotions really don't get too involved in the transaction. It's simply task oriented for me. So I was able to recognize that by knowing, who I was as a realtor, but also building upon my weakness by grabbing and working with another agent who would be able to support those lower personality profiles, the I and the S and the DISC, who were high in that area, so that we were a complete whole person team, I'll call it, in obtaining the goals that we wanted to reach.
That's so cool. And you said that's still a bulk of your business right now, right?
Yes, yes, 100%. Yeah.
Wow. That's so interesting. I don't think realtors do that enough, or even just people in business. Like, that's something that I think people or realtors feel is unattainable. And
Right.
you're proving that it's attainable.
Uh, well, like, I just saw the numbers and the data, right? On one house, you could actually be paid 4 times on it
Right.
and then still have a referral in 5 to 7 years later from the same house.
Yes, exactly. And that's also that long-term thinking, which we also don't do enough. When I stopped realtoring, people were like, "Oh, what was the biggest change you noticed by not realtoring?" And I was like, "Well, besides getting my weekends back, it was I stopped thinking in 30 to 60 to 90-day increments. Like, that is as far as I thought ahead in my business, was 90 days, which is, closing transaction time,
Right.
just because that's where you're mentally always at. And so once I started thinking like, oh, for the year, I want to do this, like, it totally changed how I did business. So
Mhm.
that's something to also think about, and having whether it's a 1 year, a 2 year, a 5 year plan. And of course, realtors definitely need to have that long-term 5 year plan because just like you said, they come back in that 5 to 6 year period where they're going to, whether it's residential or investing, same thing. Somebody's going to come back to you and you're going to be like, oh, wow, they called me and I didn't even market to them, which really you have been for the last 5 years, hopefully.
Right, right. Right, exactly, exactly. And a lot of people will also ask, what kind of CRM do you use?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like what's the newest CRM the thing that's out there? I have
Yes.
to be honest, before EXP, I didn't have a CRM. My CRM was my cell phone.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
about it, and I would just put everything down on the calendar when to follow up with people.
Yeah.
I'm not the type of agent, nor is it in my personality to go chase people. I'm not going to chase you. If you want to work with me, I know my propositional, I know my prop value, right? I know what I'm
Yeah.
able to provide you and what I'm able to do. So I'm not going to chase you. I'll
Yeah.
keep after you for a year and maybe keep those phone calls and postcards or do what I have to do. But after that, no, I'm good.
Yeah, exactly. So you just got a CRM. How has that changed your business or what do you, or have you filled it out yet?
It has been my goal for 2022 in the month of January to get a true understanding
Look
of what
at.
floor is. And with the kids being home these past 2 days, that hasn't happened. And we still have family here from out of the country. So it's been a little bit of a challenge.
Right.
So tomorrow they go back to school, and I already have it on my calendar that I'm sitting down for 3 hours and learning this until I don't know
I love that.
what's
And
going
you're
on.
going to learn so much about your business doing that. Make sure you take notes because all those little things, like even just, oh, John from property I sold a long time, just like, oh, I need to check in and see how that house is going, or even just checking to see how much it's worth now versus when you sold it 4 years ago, and just for your own self, like that's such a boost of like, I sold them this property and now it's worth, 3 times more, whatever.
Right. I would send them like a monthly postcard or by 6 times a month a postcard. So I have them in, my database
Yeah.
somewhere. So now it's just a matter of moving them over
Yep.
into KV Core to really stay on top of them. And like you said, are you thinking of selling or refinancing or, this is what your home is worth? Does it make sense for us to talk?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Okay. So the other thing that I wanted to make sure that we talked about was your book
Mhm.
and that we probably touched on that a little bit, but I think it's happening more and more where realtors have all this knowledge and they're finally realizing it. And so you're seeing a lot more agents writing books or doing ebooks or things like that. So tell us a little bit about your book journey and why you decided to do that and what it's about.
My book journey was an interesting one. I was training, agents, on for what we call the 7 Saturdays to Success program for about 2 years. And before the training program, agents were leaving, right, the brokerage, and whether they were going back to their job or moving on to another brokerage. We saw that our statistics within our office were staying true to national statistics, where about 86% of new agents leave the business. So we were seeing that in our own brokerages and started to implement the training program. And we saw that our stats were saying we were retaining more agents and they were staying and they were started producing. So I just kind of figured, well, if this is happening just locally, within this our own office, this could be happening, everywhere. And that was really the inspiration to kind of help new agents out as well as brokers to retain more agents, to really have a step-by-step guide of how to implement a training program in order for them to really be successful and stay within the brokerage.
Yeah.
And that's really was what it was about, to, like I said, to help new agents stay in the business.
Yeah. Yep. And then so tell us the name of your book.
Oh yeah, to become a rock star real estate agent, 7 steps to make 100K a year.
And when did you write it?
Oh gosh, now it's about 3 years old, 2019. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then so the process of actually writing it, how long did it take you to do that?
I would say I had the idea with me for about 6 months, 5, 6 months maybe. And, they would just post it all over the house, and what was working, what wasn't working. At one point, my daughter was like, can you take these off the kitchen cupboards? I need to get some Oreos. So
I'm
yeah, but
tired of hearing about
I
real
was able
estate.
listen, I'm not a writer, and I knew that. And my business was at a good point at that time where I really didn't have the time to write, nor did I think I had the time to write a book. So, of course, I made an investment with a book coach who would help me really kind of get my thoughts together and what I wanted to write. That ultimately, it took me 90 days from start to finish to get the idea in place. But I would say I was only literally writing the book for 3 days.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, if they were just because I had reverse engineered the book.
Yes, that
I
is
mean,
so
the
awesome.
title literally came last.
That is so interesting because I think a lot of times it's the other way around. People aren't reverse engineering enough, clearly. And that's where they get stuck because you have created this title and now everything has to fall under that. So, yeah, I'm sure that's why a lot of people get stuck.
Yeah, that's why I hear when people in real estate, oh, what should I name my team? What should my team name be? Who cares? That's last, right? Like,
Right.
get out there and start producing. And what do you want your team to look like? What are they going to be doing on that weekly, monthly basis? What are you going to be doing to support them? Forget the name of your team. It could be called ABC team. It doesn't really matter.
Right, right. And I think that also too, in that way of thinking, a lot of times building a team and people figuring out who do I hire first or who do I need, what does that team look like? Realtors are always stuck in that, okay, I'm too busy to be doing this by myself, but I don't know what that next step is. Do you just have your business partner or do you have a team at EXP or how is your
Yeah,
business
I'm
structured?
this I'm a solo agent at this time. I mean, I have a transactions coordinator. My next step really for my team is to have an admin or someone who really stays on top of it. I would say more of an inside sales kind of admin, really managing the KV core and things like that. So that I'm not so bogged down because I'm best out in the field where I'm shaking hands and kissing babies
Yep.
even during this time during COVID, right?
With the mask on.
That's where I'm best.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I'm best. So I'm better off with someone behind, I'll call it behind me, behind the scenes, as opposed to having someone or a partner next to me. And I've also learned, when I was at the previous brokerage, did I have a partner? Yes, I would call them more of my peer or associate as opposed to a partner in that sense, because it can get a little tricky. And if you're not clear on your definition of what your partnership looks like, then I think both people in the relationship can be possibly turned off by it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And the last thing I want to make sure that I talk about with you is you mentioned your YouTube channel and also that you're an introvert. So, what's your purpose of doing your YouTube videos? And are you making a videographer or somebody? Is that going to be a part of your team, the editing and all that stuff? Tell us a little bit about what you're doing there and what you hope
Yeah,
for
I,
it to
I
be.
definitely have an editor. We've come up with this series of videos that we're going to just kind of keep doing to help. I like making things educational, right? That's my background.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of hitting local markets and giving people the background about what that market looks like and maybe some things to do around Long Island. So, but yeah, I'm definitely working with someone on that, a team member, I would say, but a marketing specialist, right? Because that's
Yeah.
what's best for me. That's what they do, that's their job. By all means, go ahead.
Yes.
The YouTube channel, yeah, is really just meant for people to kind of go to as the new, what do you call, website for people
Yeah.
really to get to know you. And it allows me to showcase that personality where I think some of those influencer type personalities are, where I'm able to track them. I mean, once you get to know the personality profile like this, you're able to kind of become this chameleon so that you are attracting people who maybe don't look like you or sound like you or act like you, but they'll be able to see you on YouTube, right? And that personality so that they're able to maybe join forces with you and be a part of either your team as an agent or, a buyer or a seller that they want to work with you.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's about that connection and that relationship, and I think video really does do that. no knock against TikTok, but it's just not my, I mean, doing it for my company is so tough, but it's just not my genre. And so
Right.
we don't do it, and we're missing a huge opportunity there, but it's also what you said, and focusing your attention and your time towards things that are really, that you like to do and you know how to do it, and also where your audience is. And so that is, I'm going to hire for that. Like, okay, do a video and put it on, and
Right.
do an ad instead of being on TikTok. Cause I think that's what our struggle is too. It's like, we have like maybe 2 or 3 videos on there just because we should have a profile there. But an ad, you don't have to be there. So if your people are on LinkedIn, but you're never on LinkedIn, that's a great place to share your video, And
Right.
so whatever it is that you're doing that's in your marketing wheelhouse, what I love about YouTube too is it's like a library. You get to keep
Yes.
all of your information there. So even if somebody emails you and says, "Hey, I need some information on, I don't know, flipping a house," or that's broad and everybody asks that, but a roofer or whatever, you can be like, "Hey, I talked about this in my YouTube video," and send them the video. And I think that's also another way to utilize that as like a frequently asked questions page,
Right.
just like you said, it's the new website.
It is.
So I love that you're doing that, and you're an introvert. So I think, you
I
know,
just, I mean, I danced while I was a teenager, so I would get on
yep.
stage, but I wasn't shy or anything like that. But I wasn't, I don't like being flamboyant, like really putting it out there, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely the same way. And people see me differently than I see myself. And sometimes I just read something the other day that was like, you have to view yourself through other people's eyes as well. And if people think you're a rock star, then dang it, you're a rock star, start thinking like that. And
For sure.
I just don't think we do that enough. So I think that's the 2022 mantra for a lot of agents and
Simple
realtors. And
manifestation, it'll happen.
yes, manifestation and reverse engineering are the words of the day today.
Cool.
I love that. Okay, Jennifer, I really appreciate all of the information. Is there anything that we missed that we wanted to talk about?
No, I mean, really, I mean, I'd love for your audience who's here today to really that they can download my book at rockstaragenttraining.com. By all means, use it as a guide. And if you download the book, I'll be happy to connect with you on a 15-minute kind of strategy session for
Love
any
that.
agent who is looking maybe to get an opinion from someplace else.
Yes. And you know what's awesome about that too is that even just 15 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, if you're intentional about that time, you're going to get something out of it. And seeing or hearing something from somebody else's perspective, especially somebody that doesn't know you, is such good advice. Like that is gold. So take her up on
Cool.
it, y'all. I'm going to.
Awesome, JC.
Thank you, Jennifer. So you said you're on Facebook. Are you on Instagram?
Instagram, Jennifer Seeno Tucker 369.
Okay. And then your YouTube channel, are we going to be able to find you?
Yeah, just Jennifer Tucker Real Estate.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much for being here and taking time after the holiday. If somebody's listening to this a year from now, it's January 4th, 2022. So we're in that new year, new manifestation phase. So
There you go.
thank you for your time and thanks for being here.
All right. Thank you, Tracy. Have a great one.
You too.